So I just wanted to thank everyone for participating in this event. This is a part of SAVA celebrating Pride and all of the different voices and art and awareness. I'm going to start with introducing the team behind Wonder. So I have with me here today Gabriel Furman, who is the writer, Javi Molina, the director, and Puya Maseni, who was a consultant to the whole project and working really closely, thank you, with Javi and Gabe. So thank you again. And then, Gabe, maybe could someone else, Gabe, I'll kick it off to you if you could kind of summarize. I know the majority of our audience has already seen the film, but could you give a quick summary?
Yeah, Wonder is about a 12-year-old biracial kid growing up in the hood who secretly dreams of trick-or-treating as Wonder Woman for Halloween.
And how did you come up with this?
So myself and the very talented head of the art department on the film and my partner, Danny Marco, we were on vacation in Ireland and we pulled into a gas station and I saw this man walk out of the gas station holding what looked like a male boy, his son's hand, and his son had a full Wonder Woman costume on. And I just started crying. And Danny looked at me and she goes, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? And I said, look, that's what a real father looks like. He doesn't give a shit what anybody. And, being a cisgendered straight male, which I'm very grateful to learn from Puya, I didn't grow up with a father. Javi and I both grew up in the hood and we both didn't grow up with fathers, and it just struck something inside of me and made me think of like, well, if I was ever meant to have kids, that's the way you do it. Mm-hmm. And then the story came out, we wrote it, worked with Jav, and now we're here.
And so, Gabe, so you and Javi have been working together. You've been a creative team for some time.
Yeah, we're both members of the Actors Studio here in New York City. In 2009, we were finalists together. We both are actors. Besides the writing, that's how we met, and we just hit it off because it was like, oh, there's somebody like you in here that's not over the age of 70 and white. And it's you're not that we still love our 70 and white members, but we just hit it off. And the Actors Studio has been our artistic home and gave us a place to build our art and our artists. And we tried to break up numerous times and it didn't work. So we said, okay, we might as well stick together.
Well, it sounds like even in just you two connecting originally, you found representation of yourself in the other, which I think is why, film and, these pieces are so impactful, is for people to continue to see other representations. Javi, is that something that struck a chord with you?
Absolutely. That's like one of the main reasons we do these stories. I think it's important for our kids to see themselves on the screen in a powerful way. And also to see what it's like to be supported. I grew up and everyone that was on TV that looked like me was either like a drug dealer or, up to criminal activities. And so I'm a strong believer that kids become what they see, And so if the only thing they have access to is negative images of us, then they start to emulate that. So it's our responsibility to create a different topic, to create different images of who we are and what we're capable of. And so whenever you see anything that Gabriel and I are creating, or anyone that we collaborate with, it's about perseverance. It's about overcoming. It's about projecting an image of us at our highest possibility. You know what I mean? I always speak about you should move, speak, and act with the highest vision of yourself. And that's what I want to put out to our kids.
Yeah, I love that. And then how did you connect with Puya?
We met
Puya actually,
right?
Puya, I'd like to give you the floor and just learn a little, like have our audience hear a little bit about your background and all the different types of activism you're engaged in.
Actually, the first place I met them was at the Actors Studio. Not because I go there, but because we have a mutual friend who I knew from a different circle, but she was also part of the Actors Studio. And she knew, and correct me if I'm wrong, anywhere here, Gabe, Javi, she knew that they were working on this project, that they wanted to get it off the ground. What was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah.
2.5 years ago?
That time has gone fast.
I know. And I mean, I've been in New York 20 something years. I'm a trans woman, I'm an immigrant, but I was living stealth for a good portion of that. And if we have time at some point, I'll talk about why that was important. But then I came out, like out for the final time 5 years ago this week, because I just felt that I had a responsibility to my community, to the younger members of my community. And at that moment, I thought that I was just kissing my acting career goodbye. But I thought that it was an important thing because these kids, like Javi said, you know, it's like those kids need to see something so they can try to aspire to that. And not that I'm the beginning or end of anything, but I'm just one of those people that I thought, well, I can put myself out there and say, kids, you know, I did it. These were the hard things that I survived and I thrived, and this is where I am. And I'm here for you if I can be of any guidance to you. So ever since then, I've just been like so out that I couldn't possibly go back in anywhere. And the most important part of everything I do is, am I uplifting my communities? Now, whether it happens to be the Middle Eastern community or the immigrant community or the queer community, can I educate people? Can I uplift? Can I enlighten? Can I open eyes? And can I be a support for those people who need my support? And at that time, Gabe and Javi, they had the idea and they were looking for someone to, you know, it's like kind of like show them things that they personally didn't have in their personal arsenal. Whether it was language, whether it was difference between, you know, a trans child or gender non-conforming child or non-binary. And we got to having these very deep discussions about what is the difference? What do I know? What will this character really be? And it was so much for me to ask them and say, like, you know, Gabe, what do you want this character to be? Why do you want this character to be X, Y, and Z? And we kind of went through there. And I said from the beginning, I'm not here to change your story. I just want to help you tell it as nuanced and as inclusive and as beautiful as you possibly can, which is what really attracted me to it in the beginning. I mean, you know, from the first and up to this point, I'm so proud of these guys.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then what are some of the, are there specific groups that you're active with right now? I know you mentioned a lot of different communities that you're actively engaged with. And here we are in Pride Month last week.
I did a performance yesterday for National Queer Theater in conjunction with Dixon Place. And it was a play written by a Middle Eastern trans man about these trans MENA characters. There are so many things that you can be an activist for, and I just take them as they come. So as Javi and Gabe know, I'm on the advisory council of Ackerman Institute's Gender and Family Project, which their whole goal, their whole mission is to help families with trans and gender nonconforming children have the education, have the support, have the community that they need to be able to be as supportive of their parents while educating their respective circles. So I'm on the advisory council of that. But then also as an actor, as a writer, as a consultant, that's really where my consultancy comes in. You know, somebody has a script and they have a gender nonconforming character or they have a Middle Eastern character. And I just walk in and say, well, what if we do this? Or how about, you know, it's like we take that and what is it that you need? I don't know if I could say, well, this week I'm being a trans activist and next week I'm going to be an immigrant activist. I think it's just, I've said this to people, when I walk into a room, I'm all of those things. And I try to stand up and be a credit to all of those communities. So the next time somebody's thinking, well, I want to have a Middle Eastern character, they can be like, well, you know, Pouya's Middle Eastern, and she does not fall into your stereotypes of what a Middle Eastern woman looks like. Or Pouya's a trans person, and, you know, she doesn't fall into your stereotypes. And that's my version of activism. I walk into a room and I bring everything that I've gone through and everything that I value, and whoever finds value in that, then we connect.
Yeah.
I'd like to say she's also very open and willing to educate. You know, sometimes a lot of it now is like people are like, do your own research, you know, and sometimes, at least for me, I needed a safe space to ask questions and to learn without being attacked. And Pouya opened her home and her heart to us and gave us everything without judging us for not knowing, you know what I mean? And it made it a safe space for us to ask questions and to be able to develop a more complex and real character, you know? So I love you, Pouya. Thank you. Word.
So I obviously, you know, we're here. I loved the film. It was so moving. You know, that one of the questions I had, you know, kind of jumping to the end was that ending always the ending in mind? Did it shift or develop, or was it always, you know, this is where the story is going?
That I didn't always know there were many revisions of the script, but the first thing that I saw was that ending. Like,
yeah.
That is
well now that I'm hearing of the origin story when you were in Ireland and seeing that, now it makes sense why that is like clearly the ending. And I definitely, you know, through my experience watching the film, and you know, I feel like you don't exactly know where it's going to go. You don't know what those last final scenes, and that's, you know, what's so great about this short. But I was, you know, I had that very visceral feeling of like, where is this going to go? Is there going to be a type of resolution or not? Or what sort of resolution will there be to this story? But also, it's not cut and dry as just a happy ending, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how far we have come in queer rights or even human rights, we are light years away. And to shy from the reality of the state of the world would be a disjustice as artists. Mm-hmm. Our job is not to put bows on packages. Our job is to reveal ourselves and our fears and put that mirror up and see what happens.
Yeah, if you're uncomfortable at the end of our film, imagine what it is to live in that world, you know? Like when you have the courage to be yourself, you have to overcome these obstacles. And the problem in our world is that everyone is telling you what to be and how to be it, and they're putting you in these boxes. And very rarely does anyone say, well, who do you really want to be? Who are you? And how do I support you in being that the way you see it? You know, it's such a strange world. And even if someone does, it doesn't mean that the rest of your life is going to be easy. You know, so we hold on to our support systems. We should cherish them, but we also should acknowledge that, man, life is challenging, and there's still a lot of a lack of information out there. I was going to say ignorance, but I don't want to use that word. So even though I said it now, but there's a lack of information out there that creates ignorance, you know?
Yeah. Pouya, did you have something to add to that?
Well, it's the essence of progress, you know? It happens in steps. It's never as much as you want. It doesn't happen at the time that you want, but I look at it as every time we take a step forward, we have taken a step. And I feel, I mean, the ending of that movie is what hooked me, but we had so many discussions about, well, where do you think this child is? And then we thought that this is just a little clip of this whole journey, because you can't show a whole journey of a character within, you know, 15 minutes. But we thought, well, if this is the clip and that's where it starts and that's where it ends, then we are showing people what is possible. It doesn't mean we are at the top of Everest. It just means we took this step. Now there are going to be more hurdles along the way. There are going to be neighbors. There are going to be people at school, and all those things that this child and this father, they have to overcome. We thought, well, we can't show all of that in this movie, but at the very least, if we can show this thing, which is very important to me personally, because also statistically, the most important thing in the livelihood of a queer person is really their familial support. If at the very least, in this movie, we can say that this father is willing to take that step, is willing to question himself, is willing to show up for his child when the child needs the father, then the rest of it, it's like kind of like you can imagine whatever, but this was what was the focus on. And when it becomes a series or whatever it is meant to happen for this, then you can address that. But that's why it really spoke to me to come in and to want to be around these guys and be as helpful as I could, because this relationship between the parent and the child, and how a parent can really be there for the child in what so many people would not count, but that could save that child's life.
Yeah, it's that acceptance. I mean, one of the word, normalize isn't exactly maybe the right word, but of just like the father putting on that outfit too, of like, hey, this is okay. Like, I'm going to do this. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Like, what's wrong with a father and son going out dressed like Wonder Woman? Like, no big deal. Let's go trick or treating. But then at the very end, when there's a homophobic slur, brought back to the son, or to both of them, at the end, was this also part, Gabe, I know you had that clear vision of the father and son. Was the very last word and how it closed, was that something that came out of your group discussions? Again, trying to reflect, what we are saying, like we made a move, like some movement, but there's big journeys ahead of us.
Javier and I in particular, I mean, Puya had a lot to chime in and she kind of solidified whether we kept it or not. Javier and I had many discussions. I always fought for keeping it in because discrimination happens on many different levels. And when it's specific, shown in the right way, although you might not be the race or gender that is discriminated on, if it's shown in the right way and you can communicate with that, specificity speaks to universality. And we had a lot of, we think that there's a lot of film festivals that we didn't get into because of that ending.
Yeah, we got a lot of pushback.
Yeah, we got pushback. And the ones that really accepted it, that said, if that wasn't there, then we would have failed as filmmakers, is the queer community. Most of the queer film festivals were the ones that said, thank you. We had all types of LGBTQIA people coming up to us, crying afterwards, saying, thank you for keeping that word in, because the fight is not done yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a different environment, man. I've seen some very horrible things coming up, and we had that huge discussion, and we still have it, because I'm also of the mindset that I don't want to lose any demographic or any audience that needs to hear this message because we decided to keep a particular word in there. But it's also, it's like Gabe is saying, it's not my job to make you comfortable. And if you're uncomfortable, it's because this needs to be addressed. We need to look at it. You need to be able to sit in that uncomfortability and be honest so that we can make changes that's going to help us all progress and move forward. But some people don't want to, and that's for them to deal with when they get to it, but they don't want to face the truth of some of these situations because it's too much for them. It's like walking past a homeless person and pretending that they're not there. Not putting it on the same level, but it is that kind of like, oh, I don't want to see it. I know it's there, but I don't want to see it, And
don't want to see it, don't want to experience it. Don't want to experience what those feelings come up. Mm-hmm.
Right. And my thing is always, like I said, it's like, if that particular word, if those moments make you uncomfortable, imagine walking in their shoes. Imagine living that life and having to face that type of ridicule or judgment or aggression on a daily basis just because you've chosen to be who you authentically are. It's just unfair that anyone would have to pretend to be something else so that you feel good about yourself.
Puya, yeah, do you have any other thoughts on the ending and why it was important to keep it that way?
It's real. That's what I love about the movie, and in that way, it's very different from my experience as a trans. I mean, like, I didn't grow up in a particular neighborhood. I don't come from where they come from, but I know the reality of it. I know the assault that does happen towards especially queer people of color. So like Javi was saying, if it makes you uncomfortable, then part of that means that there's a certain reality in that you don't want to face. And I feel that just because you don't want to face the reality, it doesn't make it go away. It's like, you can pretend, like the coronavirus, you can pretend it's not happening, but yet it happened.
Yeah.
And I'm always, it's like, in some ways, I kind of like, I have this idea of like, yeah, let's live in our fantasies. I mean, like, we're making movies, but then sometimes we make something that is meant to question you, that it's meant to put something in your face, and through making you uncomfortable, making you question the status quo. Like when people say, oh, there's a lot more crimes happening against LGBTQ people. I don't know if I completely agree with that. I just think we've become aware of these crimes that were always happening, that just nobody talked about, that it didn't get coverage. And I think that's part of healing. It's almost like before you can heal a wound, you have to realize that there's a wound and then set out to try to heal it. And when you use a slur, when you use a word that makes people uncomfortable, like at the end of this movie, it's putting it up in the face that while you may not usually see that, know that in that dark corner, when that non-conforming person is walking, they are probably going to be called that way. They are probably going to be chased down the block. They may be assaulted, and all of those things that happens. And that's one of the things that I'm so in love with this project, is there is something very loving, but then there's also the cruel reality of what life can be like when you don't fit into other people's ideas of what you should be.
I love that. I want to kind of just dig a little deeper for a moment on this concept of discomfort and uncomfortable reflections and pushing oneself to acknowledge, their feelings they're having, and kind of just, I'm curious, what are some of the themes that you're thinking of or feeling between Wonder and current events? You've made this film, months ago. You knew you were going to be submitting it to all these festivals, getting it showcased during Pride Month, but a lot's been happening in the world the past few months. That's incredibly important, especially, Puya, like you said, highlighting voices that have been there this whole time that haven't been properly heard. And we're really just scratching the surface, because I want to hear from you, but it's important that these voices aren't heard for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 1 month. But yeah, how have like current events, as you're, working on this film and future projects, how are you seeing some of this intersectionality?
Me?
We'll go backwards this time. Yeah, Puya first.
But I'm actually, I always talk about, and I have this hashtag that I really love, everyday pride. I sometimes feel that the cis hetero, kind of like the silent majority world feels good about the Pride Month, because they're like, oh, look, we gave them their month, so the other 11 months, who cares if we don't acknowledge them or hear them? Big businesses do it. I mean, I did a Pantene commercial last year, which was supposed to be for Pride Month. I'm like, we do live the other 11 months. It's like, it's not like we all vanish into a parallel universe and then suddenly June comes and like, poof, we're all here. So that's what I'm always pushing for. It's like, why Is it that everything LGBTQ oriented, whether it's film festivals or series or campaigns, why is it that it just has to be in June? Is it that the cis hetero majority world just feels comfortable to like, here are the crumbs, we're giving you your month? Because I feel very strongly about my community, and especially the young members of my community. And I always question, well, what happens to these kids when they need to be affirmed in July or August or September or November? And so, yes, we are scratching the surface, and I hope there's going to come a time that we don't have to have Pride Month, because people can be who they are, full out in their full magical experience every month of the year. And maybe part of it does come from taking the crumbs in June and saying like, okay, thank you for giving us this time slot so we can show you our experiences. And having filmmakers like Javi and Gabe to come from a background that usually does not get any spotlight, it's like a queer child in the projects. Like we've talked about this, that character is not a character you see. It makes people uncomfortable on many levels, and people apparently can be only uncomfortable about one thing at a time. But this can make people uncomfortable about class and race and gender expression and a single father and all of those things. You bring it together. And I think that is where we are. It's not where we pretend we are, it's where we really are. And living in that world that, okay, people should only be affirmed in June, I think that's so 2009.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you. Yeah, applause.
Sorry, I remember.
No, I love it. Javi, any other thoughts on kind of the intersectionality you're seeing of having created this film and current events?
I think that more and more people are speaking their truths, and there's more room for us to be who we're meant to be. And if you're not giving us that room, we're gonna take it. I don't think we're sitting back and gonna be passive anymore. Enough of the crumbs and enough of becoming complacent because you gave me, the lowest job in your spectrum. We just deserve to be seen as the same. When they came up with the Constitution or the Bill of Rights, it was like everyone has the right to the pursuit of happiness and freedom and this and this, and it's not supposed to have like a clause or an exception in it. And we're fighting for the right to be ourselves, and I honestly, man, I'm a bit of an optimistic, and I'm thinking that there's a paradigm shift that's happening. And there's an evolution in consciousness that's coming, and it's all going to start with love. You know what I mean? Love is love is love. That is the core guiding principle in everything. And we're fighting for the right to love ourselves the way we see ourselves, and not having to like put on the disguise or be something else. I just want to be me, and I don't want to have to be tough, and I don't want to have to be this idealistic picture of what a man is, you know what I mean? And and we handle things with violence, and we don't cry. And I'm a barbarian. Like I'm too old for that. I don't believe in that with my kids. If my son wants to cry, then cry, bruh. You're not crying blood. You know what I mean? I think it cleanses the soul. And I think that that's what's happening in the world right now. We're like, enough of your rules, enough of this box. I want to be me. I want my human rights as a human, period. I'll go on this rant, but
well, yeah, I mean, this is, I think the film is powerful, and the movements today that are happening are powerful, and they need to be sustained. And these voices need to be heard. And I can't believe this half hour has gone by so quickly, but in terms of voices continuing to be heard, Gabe, what's the future for Wonder, and how can people continue to stay connected to everyone?
So as everybody knows, Wonder is available on HBO right now, and we're very grateful. We have partnered and signed a deal with a producer named Frida Torres Blanco at Braven Films, who produced one of the producers on Pan's Labyrinth. And we also have signed on to the project our mentor, Bobby Moresco, who is legendary for many things, humane and good. One of his least popular things is a little film called Crash and $1 Million Baby. And Bobby he's been a light in our lives, guiding us. And we're creating the TV series right now. We're writing that, we're putting it together, and then we'll see where Frida takes it from there. And if you want to follow us and know what's going on, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook. Our handle is @WonderTheShort or @TheRealTalkFilms. And we just thank you. And thank you, I'm gonna do this real quick. Who introduced us, thank you to the Gender and Family Project, who has also been a beacon of light and helped us and continue to help us. And what they do there is amazing for kids and families.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for participating. I'm really honored you all took time out to connect with our audience, and our audience gets to learn a bit more about, the story behind the film. I got, pretty choked up a couple of times during this. So just thank you again, and looking forward to continuing to following your journey.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy
Pride.
Pride.
Happy everyday Pride.
Amen.
Everyday Pride. Everyday Pride. Bye.
Bye.